Now, as Ghana continues to witness an increase in the confirmed cases of the coronavirus, the adverse impact on the economy is increasingly becoming a stark reality. Now, as government tries to steer the boat in the midst of the storm, it has turned to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for support. Philip Namfuri explores this move in this report.
Just when many of us thought Ghana's relationship with the IMF was on a hold, we are learning we are turning back to the IMF for some support this time. However, this time some argue the metrics are different in that there has been no economic mismanagement whatsoever. There's a crisis, and that's the coronavirus. How will the IMF support us? We are going for what is called the Rapid Credit Facility. That's one of the IMF's numerous lending arrangements or instruments. We have over 8 IMF lending arrangements or instruments. And by that I mean, these are the programs that the IMF has in place for countries who want to borrow from them. Now, the RCF, the Rapid Credit Facility, like the name suggests, rapid, involves some disbursement of funds to Ghana in a much more quick manner, as opposed to other programs where we take time, go through some due diligence, pass some certain metrics before funds are made available to us. This time we should see some quick disbursement of the funds after the IMF authorities approve Ghana's request for this Rapid Credit Facility. I beg your pardon. Now, the Rapid Credit Facility is a loan, but the terms and conditions are quite different. This has soft terms, and by soft terms, I mean 0 interest rates, a 5.5-year grace period, and a 10-year maturity. So we can be looking at paying back this loan over a long period, 0 interest rate in there. That is good for us. If we're going to the international markets to borrow, there'll be some rates on that. Now, some may also ask, how much is Ghana going to get from this and all that? It should interest you to know that Ghana has a quota of 738 million special drawing rights. Let me explain that. Special drawing rights are the IMF's basket of currencies. So all currencies, major international currencies, are put together to form this SDR, special drawing rights. If you want to convert this into dollars, which is the major mode of business transactions across the world, we're looking at almost $1 billion in terms of funds available to Ghana for disbursement. So how much of that billion is going to be available to us? We don't know yet. I'm sure we'll get details in the meantime, but this has become necessary because we really have nowhere else to turn to. If you look at our budgets, we really have a very tight budget in terms of very low revenue and high expenditures. If you look at our exports, yesterday I discussed exports, we are doing well in there, but it would be not wise to burn through our revenues or our foreign exchange earnings, I must say, to go through this coronavirus. So we need some sort of external support, and IMF comes to the rescue as our knight in shining armor with the Rapid Credit Facility program. So I would urge you to go on the website of the IMF, just Google IMF Ghana. It will take you straight to the IMF website, and you see our relationship with the IMF and things like that. So expect in the coming days for us to have some engagement with the IMF. And this facility is called, again, the Rapid Credit Facility program or lending instruments from the IMF. Soft conditions supposed to help Ghana out to fight the coronavirus.
Well, joining me for a conversation around this is economist Courage Boti with Data Bank Research. Thanks for your time tonight, Courage. So what do you think? A good move by government, seeing that we are becoming overwhelmed with increasing cases of coronavirus?
Thank you and good evening to your listeners. I think it's an absolutely necessary step at this point in time. Mind you, coronavirus is not only taking lives, it's also destroying the economic outlook broadly. And you can see that in the recent space of time, and just in a space of close to 3 weeks now, we've had major central banks around the globe cutting their interest rate and adding some quantitative easing programs to it, all in a bid to stimulate the macroeconomy. At this time, people prefer to hold cash, businesses are not investing as much, and then production is at its low. So we need to stimulate agri demand, and one way to do that is provide money. Another way may be for the central government to stimulate through their fiscal tools available to them to try to help boost economic activity. If you look at it critically, Ghana may be losing on three fronts. We are looking at in the area of petroleum prices. Because of trade war and weak demand, petroleum prices are as low as $27 today. And then our budget was planning, or the benchmark rate in our budget was around $58 per barrel. So a huge shortfall in that regard. Trade will suffer, tourism as a sector will suffer. And government is projecting about 2% shortfall in revenue as a result of this COVID outbreak, which amounts to some 7.96 billion if you take the base GDP of 398 billion cedis. So we're looking at a shortfall about some 8 billion this year. What they are looking to do is get about 550 million support from the Bank of Ghana and some 400 million, World Bank, and then some 400 million from the IMF, from the Rapid Credit Facility, towards plugging that hole in the budget. And then that will leave a difference of around some 370 or so million, which they are hoping to seek parliamentary approval to assess or tap the petroleum funds. I'm talking about the stabilization fund and then the heritage funds to plug that 7.96, if you like, 8 billion deficit that they anticipate on the budget for the year. And it's necessary we do this so that already Bank of Ghana is projecting growth to slow from the 6.8 projected earlier in the year to now 5% on the base case scenario, and much less at 2.5 on the worst case scenario. If we don't avert such growth concerns by spending directly in the economy and looking for stimulus from the other sectors, we may be hit hard by this coronavirus thing, even on the economic side. So I think it's a step in the right direction to try to stimulate the economies. It is something economies do during these times. If you remember the financial crisis of 2008, 2007, and then all of what the U.S. has to do. So I dare say that the 5% fiscal rule for this year 2020 may be under threat and may have to be suspended. The law provides for that, and then I think one of the conditions specified for suspending that rule includes pandemics like this. So I think that may come up for conversation at some point along the year. And so I think it's a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction.
To find this time concessional ways of plugging the hole in the budget.
And so this credit facility we are requesting, where do you think government should inject these monies? You talk about the fact that there needs to be some sort of stimulus. What's your thinking?
And of course, you do not expect the agriculture sector to take a hit so much because you realize it's not so dependent on the external sector. But trade would suffer. Tourism as a sector would also suffer
Courage Boutique, they're making some important submissions there, following government's move to turn to the IMF. I understand he's back on. Courage, you're making a point. Hi, Courage, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right, you're making a point about where government should inject these monies.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is this. Originally, the trade sector, the tourism sector, and the other sectors that would have taken a hit were projected to grow at a certain rate. And then based on those, they are supposed to generate some revenue for the budget. And so as a result of this outbreak and then the consequences it will have for those sectors, revenue would fall short in that regard. So the 1.3, 1.4 billion thereabout that we are expecting as a shortfall will just be money they are borrowing from elsewhere to shove up or to cover up for the shortfalls that will come from the hit those sectors will take, right? So that the economy can operate, like the budget can run its full course like they are anticipating. If it becomes necessary that they go beyond those, then of course they may have to suspend the fiscal rule, to be able to attain the budget target for the year. So the 1.4 billion that they will be looking to raise from the IMF, World Bank, and the petroleum funds will be to plug the holes that will come for the revenue side. that the coronavirus.
All right, Courage. Courage, thank you so much. I appreciate your perspective tonight on this matter. That was Courage Boti. He is an economist with the Data Bank Research there. You're watching Business Live. We are taking a short break. Don't go anywhere. The Joy Business Van is coming up.